Hit me.
From Studio P in Sausalito, the home of the hit. From Studio A in Arcata, behind the redwood curtain, it's time for...
Succotash.
Yes, Succotash, the comedy soundcast featuring snippets from comedy.
Soundcasts.
And also interviews with comedians, comedian soundcasters, and other showbiz folk. And now, here's your host, internationally recognized comedy soundcaster, Marc Hershon. And now, here's this episode's host from up the coast, the man who puts the X in Xbox and the tie on antisocial, comedy soundcaster, Tyson Saner.
Marc.
Yes, thank you, Bill Haywatt. Marc Hershon here, but I'm not by myself, am I?
No.
Tyson Saner. You've got two hosts for the price of one, Marc Hershon, Tyson Saner. And we are here for this very special 12th anniversary episode of Succotash, the comedy soundcast. Tyson, it's been quite a while. You've been here almost as long as the show has been on. I mean, you started as associate producer in our second year.
It was, 2012.
Yep. So you, and then stepped up to the plate when I needed a break and took over hosting for several years.
It was at least two. It was, yeah.
Two and change.
Did it
two
start?
And change.
Was it 2016-ish? No, it couldn't have been. It was more like 2017 or 18.
2017, and then you took a little break when your son was born, and I stepped back in for a few months.
Yes, indeed.
Then you came back, and then we were about to go on hiatus. In fact, we did go on hiatus, and we said we're going on hiatus. Don't know when we're going to be back, and then COVID struck 2 weeks later, and we said, this is too good an opportunity to pass up. And we decided, you know what? For the first time in the show's history, we're actually going to drop a show every god darn week. And we're even going to drop on the same day every week. And ever since 2020, April of 2020, we've been dropping every Tuesday-ish. I've been late. You've always been on time. But by switching off, we hit that sweet spot of being able to produce these shows. Each of us taking 2 weeks to do it and then come back and play some clips or do interviews. And now we are all the way to the 12th anniversary, which is amazing.
I mean, holy cow.
I kind of started this on a lark, really. But let's talk more about larks and starting things and getting things going. We have a special guest for this episode, a gentleman who's been in soundcasting about as long as we have. Has had one show that was on when we first got started, and then he'll talk about this. That show went on a very long hiatus. I think it's still on hiatus, but he's been extremely busy on the production side of soundcasting, or he'll probably call it podcasting because that's the kind of guy he is. Please welcome Travis Clark.
Howdy. Thank you for having me on, and congratulations on 12 years. It really is crazy to think about that, because if I stop and think about it, it's been 12 years. But if I don't, I'm like, that's been like 2 summers. It doesn't feel like it's been that long.
I know. Sometimes it does feel that way, except when you look through the headstones of soundcasts that have gone by the wayside.
Yeah, you mentioned when I started, I was doing a show with my wife called Tiny Odd Conversations, and we did that every week for 4 years.
Yes.
And then I said, that feels like that's enough. That feels good. I could probably stop now.
4 years is a darn good run. I mean, that's about enough time to have about 100 episodes.
We hit 200, I think, by the time we were done. We put out just a lot of episodes, and I had more than one meltdown. I tried to quit numerous times.
I wouldn't let you at one point.
You talked me off the ledge, I think, like on year 2.5. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And you convinced me to stay, and I did till 2016, I think, was our last episode.
But 2016 was actually the year that I started a soundcast with Hunter Block. That's when Antisocial sort of started.
That's right.
Oh, cool.
running
That's
alongside Succotash.
So intertwined, these shows.
Yes, indeed.
Travis, then you did another show. You did a couple of other shows.
Quick question with my buddy Jonathan. We did that for a couple of seasons. I loved doing it, and I know Jonathan did too. It just became one of those things where Jonathan is a very busy working actor, and he was like never in town, and he was never around, and we tried doing it remote. And this was before people really had set up remote stuff.
Yeah.
So we just haven't done it. We keep threatening to come back and do more. And then I've been involved with the Unpopular Opinion Network, or Unpops, in every incarnation of all the different music shows that we've done. So we've done shows about Nirvana, Oasis, Korn, Limp Bizkit. I know we're doing Fleetwood Mac right now. So we're anybody who's difficult, we're doing a podcast about.
But your point about the show with you and Jonathan, you might come back. That's why I always say shows just go on very long hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
Because you never know. You never know. They do come back.
Yeah, that's the kind of beauty of the internet, is everything is forever and everything is revisitable. You can't come back. It's the double-sided sword of the internet.
That's right. But as I mentioned, you have been on the production side of a number of shows. You were working, can we mention the fact you were working for Spotify?
You can mention it. I don't know if I'll say anything favorable about it, but yeah, I was there for a few years.
Well, that's okay. And then you've done some independent stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You just had an announcement on your socials the other day that you've got a show coming out that you not only kind of ran the ship production wise, but you're also your voice also appears as the announcer. I'm not sure what role you've got, or if you can talk about it.
Yeah, it's the intro and outro. So this company had basically run sort of like a masterclass sort of situation, but live over Zoom. And they ripped the audio from that and they were making it into individual podcasts. And my job was to kind of make sure that the audio would make sense, even though it wasn't originally kind of purposed for that. And they were like, we need somebody to kind of book into the show, like announce what the show is and do credits. And when I know just the guy, it's me, and you can hire me as well. So I got myself a second job out of that.
That's nice. That's very funny.
It's very cool. I was looking on IMDb, and it looks like there's about 52 credits separately of voice directing and directing of podcast audio. Many, many, many of them.
Yeah, several thousand. They really worked us to the bone over at the Swedish company, and as I shall call it. And yeah, I think it was 2,300 episodes I did over the course of 2.5 years. Yeah, it was quite a lot of episodes.
Holy cow!
Indeed.
It reminds me. There's one of our other favorite guests, Phil Leirness of Chillpak Hollywood Hour. Chillpak Hollywood Hour. We've got a salutation coming up from him, but he reached out to me. This was about 4 years ago, and he started working with the Los Angeles Breakfast Club.
Oh yeah.
Right, which is this 100-year-old institution that's been meeting like once a week for 100 years. And he discovered when he started with them, they had an old recording booth in their actual, like the room where they hold their breakfast and stuff, like a real booth. And he found all these ancient tapes from and people like Will Rogers was there and would appear, and presidents, Calvin Coolidge was on an episode. And he got our engineer. I turned him on to Joe Polino, our engineer, who helped him resuscitate some of those tapes that were kind of on their last acetate.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Tapes do only have so many plays in them, especially as time goes on.
Yeah. So he started doing Los Angeles Breakfast Club on the air, and he would play some of those tapes, and he would have audio from the current meetings. And he tapped me to be the announcer for the show for some reason. And so every month or so, he would send me this, 7 or 8 lines to record. And they were in a vacuum to me. I had no idea what connection to the show they had. But we've still got a few more left to go. I think he's running that show down. But we've got a few more episodes left. So every once in a while, I'll get that email with those lines. And it's a lot of fun not to have any real responsibility other than just I'll read these lines and send them back.
That is the best. I did an audiobook last year, and it was like 600 pages, but I was only the narrator. All the other characters were cast. So I would just have to go, it was a dark and stormy night. And I do that. And it was like 3 pages of me not talking. he wondered, and you just say stuff like that, like completely disjointed, but it's great when you get to kind of, I don't know, be a bird's eye view out of the whole project. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Now Tyson's special superpower that he brought to this show was he listens to everything, or at least that's how it seemed to me.
Wow.
When we first got connected, it was like, yeah, I've heard that show. Sure, I can get you something from that. And I think originally you were just clipping and sending me stuff. I don't think there was any direction to get any particular shows. You would just find all these wonderful shows. And that was, of course, 12 or let's say 11 years ago, 10 years ago, it was still this wild frontier of shows. There were no networks.
Oh, yeah.
It was just people doing their own individual shows. And there were three guys in a basement, and, a comedian would try and do like Todd Barry he did his for 10 years. And I heard him recently on a podcast saying, yeah, I just kind of stopped doing it. I didn't even tell people I was quitting. I just got tired of doing it. You do feel a lot of times that you're just kind of like talking into a vacuum.
Or you're making content for end times, like, they're going to unearth this like treasure trove, this cache of material. They're like, this is what life was like in the early 21st century. Everyone talked about their feelings.
Yeah, but to get back to Tyson, you would find these shows, and these were shows I wasn't hearing. I was out there listening too, but you were finding them. And what led you to be such a devout devourer of the medium at such a kind of early stage of its development?
Probably listening to movie commentaries, starting with that, and then listening specifically to Kevin Smith movie commentaries was really entertaining. And then eventually I moved to Kevin Smith his appearances. And then when I found out he had a podcast, I was like, well, I could probably listen. I know I can listen to people talk, and he's pretty entertaining. Maybe he will. And that was one of the first podcasts that I listened to that was properly a podcast as opposed to just archived radio program. Like I used to listen to Adam Carolla's archived radio program when he lost the radio show and started doing a podcast.
Right.
And before that, it was like, I listened to Opie and Anthony back in the day, and it was so shocking that I used to think it was funnier. But I was, I guess, more prone to enjoying shock humor. And but no, so like now the Smodcast Network was where I first got the clips that I sent in to you, because that might have been the first podcast network. Might have. Yeah,
been. I guess they actually were. They were kind of. Yeah, they were official. They were official
the first,
network.
If not the first. Yeah. They were right there. And so like, Nooner was one of the ones that I sent in, and that was Dan Etheridge and Marty Yu were hosting that back then. They are actually still going as well, and I've been doing their Tumblr on Tuesday nights for like the last 7 or 8 years or something.
Oh, really? Okay, that's right. Yeah,
still
that's
doing it
right.
live. So. Yeah, so they're like talking about jazz or something, and it'll be like in John Coltrane and blah 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 blah, and I'll go to Wikipedia, John Coltrane, click link, stick it in Tumblr. So when people, I guess, go back through years later, if they want to listen, they can scroll back through the Tumblr. And I don't know why the hell I'm doing this anymore, honestly, but it started off as just kind of like, oh, you want information, I have information. Maybe people who don't know what you're talking about will see this, and then it just kind of grew from there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I sent you. It was actually 2 clips from shows that were on the Smodcast Network, Nooner and The Breaks. So,
okay, that's right. That's right.
And then after that, I don't know. I think you sent me an email saying, hey, if you got any more to send in anytime you want. And I was like, sure, yeah. And then eventually it became, if you want to send about 3 at a time as a regular, on a regular basis, that would help. And I was like, yeah, I could do that. So I began listening to even more stuff. But there was already like 5 or 6 shows on the Smodcast Network that I listened to at the time. So I just got used to, this is what I'm doing. I'm listening to something, And
yeah.
Now theoretically, I'm a better listener than I was before. So.
But and then we made you, we anointed you associate producer.
Oh yes.
Because we don't have really any salary scale here, but we have titles aplenty. So. Travis, anytime you want to, belly up to the bar, I'm sure we can find one for you.
I would love one. Is Show Maven available? I feel like that's a pretty cool title.
Show Maven, it is.
Yeah.
Show Maven, Travis Clark. All right. Yeah, I'll have to have Bill Haywatt record that for our next line of credits.
The funny thing about soundcasts, podcasts, whatever you call them, is in all the different places I've worked, no title transfers. Like you can be the producer of something, and that could mean like I recorded the whole thing was my idea, and I mixed the whole thing. It can also mean that like I brought snacks for everyone. Like it doesn't matter across the studios. It's always different. It's never the same.
It's like movie titles, you know.
Exactly.
You could be a producer on a movie, and it could be you're the guy with the money, you're the guy with the snacks, or you had a place they could film. Or you had been a member of the cast for so long they had to give you a producer credit. You know, it's just one of those. Exactly. I remember the earlier days of this. We would get, because you'd mentioned this, Tyson, the idea of repurposing radio. And I think we used to turn up our noses at those shows. People were trying to capitalize on podcasting. And so they weren't doing a podcast, but they said, we got, hours and hours and years of all this archival footage. Let's just turn that into a podcast and slap it out there. And we were like, what?
I know specifically one of which you speak. It was Car Talk, I think.
Yes.
Because Car Talk, I think by the time they started podcasting, I think both or one of them was dead.
Yes, and they're still podcasting, and one of them is still dead.
and that would be an example. Yeah, it's like, the other thing was too, I would occasionally go to archive.org and hear lectures, because I'd found some lectures given by Allen Ginsberg and William S. Burroughs, and it's just, they're talking at colleges with very minimal audience interaction, but you're listening to somebody just kind of speak. So I guess I was kind of like already queuing up to be somebody who would listen to other people talk.
So everything fell in place for you, basically.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, here I am. Here we are.
Excellent.
Without listeners, there's really no point to do any of this.
That's true of music as well.
It's true.
And yet I can tell by the numbers that we have a fairly regular listenership. It goes up and down, but we have a very dull roar of people that normally listen to the show. But it spikes about once a week. It'll spike, but not on the same day, which is very weird. It'll be like it'll spike the day we drop, or it'll spike on Saturday, it's very strange.
I remember being upset because I used to look at those numbers of my first show endless. I was always poring over them, and I became obsessed with the fact that I was in all these countries, but no one in Greenland had listened to the show. And I began to worry, like, is it possible? Can I just want, it doesn't have to be, they don't even have to listen to the whole episode. I just want one download in Greenland. Never got it.
Oh man. I just got a notice, and this was from a service I don't subscribe to, but I had checked out their website. So they sent me like a thing with the Succotash rating on it. And this was just a couple of weeks ago, but apparently we're 126 in Ecuador. So, yeah, in comedy podcasts.
Look out, Ecuador.
So on the So we got this number of congratulations, salutations, whatever you want to call them, on the event of our 12th anniversary, and we'll play them sort of throughout the show. We're not going to play them all at once, but I'm playing this one first because this was our very first guest in studio. He was in studio. He was I don't know if you remember, Travis. I think when you were on, we did this. I used to have co-hosts. They were guest co-hosts.
Yes.
And so they would pick tracks and we would play them. And so this is our very first guest. He's also our most frequent guest on Succotash over the last 12 years. And it's, you might remember him. He's from Saturday Night Live. He's got his own show right now with David Spade called Fly on the Wall, which I believe is in the top 5 of comedy soundcasts. But Mr. Dana Carvey.
Hello, this is Dana Carvey wishing Succotash a happy 12th anniversary. Podcast that started it all about podcasts. Succotash. Kind of an interesting name, maybe not the best choice. I'm not going to weigh in on that now, but I like Succotash. Anyway, 12 years. That's quite an accomplishment. Feels like it's thought it'd be like 13 or 11, whatever. This is all I got. Goodbye.
It's pretty funny.
So that's Dana for you, and you should be warned if you ever get a chance to ask him for something like that you will never get anything that's a completely glowing endorsement. had him write a blurb for my my business book I co-wrote years ago called I Hate People. And his blurb on the book cover was, ironically, I hate the guys that wrote this book.
Wow. But at the same time, that's what you want from Dana Carvey.
I think
Like,
it is.
You don't want what a wonderful book this was, and I found it truly helpful. You're like, what, who co-wrote this blurb? It's not Dana Carvey.
Exactly. So thank you, Dana, for sending that in. We appreciate it very much. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, I will put one in here. I was going to have Bill Haywatt record a special one for this episode, and he's been under the weather and has been unable to really stand upright at the microphone. I think it's mostly alcohol, but it also could be illness or both. But of course, he's our booth announcer. You heard him at the top of the show. And he also does our Henderson's Pants ads. Henderson's Pants, of course, our long running sponsor, non-paying sponsor, completely fake sponsor.
What?
Yes. I hate to rip the veil aside for you, Travis, but yes.
I just thought they were bad at shipping the pants. I've been waiting for 12 years for my first order.
Oh my.
But the Henderson's Pants ads, people were entranced with them early on. I remember one of our podcast friends in England, it was Norman Trousers, which is a perfect name to go with the fact that he did our graphics that you'll see in our Twitters for Henderson's Pants occasionally. It looks like a gold embossed thing on like a brown, like a leather material. So he cranked out a bunch of those and sent them years ago. So we still use those. And some listeners have actually written some of the ads that I've featured, that we've featured on the show. There's a comic in New York named Harry White, and he was a huge fan of Henderson's Pants. And I think he sent in 3 ads.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had Bill read those. So it's kind of an interesting little bit of our history that we had this thing that started as, again, just kind of we said, we need some advertisers, but until we get them, let's make our own ads. And so Henderson's was going to be sort of an Amazon type of an organization that they made all sorts of things. And then we just, Joe and I, he was producing, he was the in-booth producer for like the first 25 shows. And then he kind of showed me how to do it myself because he got really busy. He was a voiceover guy, recently retired. He's done like 6,000 commercials in his lifetime for like McDonald's and stuff big, national sponsors. So he got really busy. So he says, I can just show you how to do this. It's not that hard. Of course, I can never do it as well as he could, but at least, he showed me the ruminants of how to pull it together. And we said, well, why don't we just challenge ourselves and make Henderson's just about pants?
Every kind of pants. There were picnic pants. There were hammock pants. There's so many pants.
Oh yeah. That's the beauty of it will we run out of pants? And so far we haven't. It was just an interesting challenge to do. We had an ad that I played on my last episode that I hosted, which was Henderson's artificial intelligence trousers. And I think I actually sent that to you, Travis. I'm not mistaken.
You did. I loved it. It was great. It was because AI wrote it, right?
AI wrote it. AI performed it. AI did the music for it. And then I just put it together so it was all in one place. But it was all artificial intelligence. Chat GPT wrote the copy. This thing called Natural Reader read that copy.
In a very unnatural way.
Yes. And then I found this 8-bit music that some computer had generated and put that underneath it.
Hello, friends. Bill Haywatt here, and I'm excited to introduce you to the future of fashion, brought to you exclusively by Henderson's Pants. Get ready for the revolutionary Henderson's AI trousers, the first pants completely designed by artificial intelligence. That's right, folks. Our advanced AI system analyzed millions of data points, fashion trends, and comfort needs to create the perfect pair of trousers. Not only do they look fantastic, but they also come with 3 incredible benefits you won't find in any other slacks. Adaptive fit technology. Say goodbye to uncomfortable waistbands and tight pockets. The AI trousers feature a cutting-edge fabric that adjusts seamlessly to your body shape, providing a perfect fit, no matter your size or how much you've indulged at that buffet. The AI trousers boast an intelligent temperature control system. These pants monitor your body temperature and adjust their breathability and insulation to keep you comfortable in any climate. Hot summer day? No problem. Freezing winter? Bring it on. And finally, the stain repellent nano coating. Spill your coffee? Dropped ketchup on your lap? Fear not. With the AI trousers, liquids and stains simply roll off, keeping your pants looking pristine all day long. Originally designed for the busy commuter who needs a versatile, comfortable pair of pants that can handle the daily hustle and bustle. The high-powered executive who wants to make an impression in the boardroom while enjoying unmatched comfort and style. And the eco-conscious fashionista who values sustainable, ethically produced clothing without sacrificing aesthetics or functionality. So, what are you waiting for? Head over to your nearest Henderson's retailer to grab a pair of AI trousers today. Remember, with Henderson's pants, you're not just wearing trousers, you're wearing a piece of history, and now, the future, since 1428. And now back to Succotash.
I mean, the future is it's very dim for us flesh bags. Like we're not going to be needed.
Well, somebody has to press the buttons.
It's true.
That's right. But the sad commentary about Henderson's pants is that, and I blame myself because there's no one else really to blame for this, is we've never really had any sponsors on the show. So from a certain point of pride, we are self-perpetuating and people do not have to worry about sponsorships getting in the way other than our goofy Henderson's pants ads.
You're beholden to no one. I have to tell you, as someone who used to have to find places to put ads in shows that I was producing, you'd have to go, is there enough distance between that person's trauma and this read for, whatever weighted blanket we're selling? Like I can't go from one to the other. It makes no sense. It's very jarring. So you're beholden to no one. Your content doesn't have to conform to anything other than a pair of pants.
That's right. But with the shows you work on, Travis, how you mentioned the difficulty of finding a place to place spots, but how hungry are these networks to make sure those spot places get filled up?
Depending on the network, pretty hungry. I mean, they'll sell live reads. So, I'll be in the middle of, we record the show without any ads, and then we record the ads separately, and then I have to find a way to weave them in as if it was always part of the plan. And that's when it doesn't always work. But now, going back to our good friend AI, I think AI places ads in a lot of shows. So sometimes you'll be listening to a show if you're listening on the ad-supported version, and just all of a sudden there's an ad in the middle, or it starts at the beginning. And we would do on popular shows, I won't name the network, but we would really kind of oversell a show. You'd put in 8 ads in an episode that was like barely an hour long. So it's like every 10 minutes you're throwing something in, plus you have one to start, plus you have one to end. It was a lot.
You remember the classic, "We will return after these messages"?
Yes.
It was usually Saturday morning cartoons now that I think
about
it, but that's where I would hear it a lot.
Yes.
We're roughly the same age, Mr. Clark, I believe. So we probably have some of the same Saturday morning cartoon memories, assuming that you watch Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh, and I still do. I mean, I still kind of look them up, and after these messages, we'll be right back. I remember that little. I think that was like a ABC when they would play a little thing, and
ABC, yeah.
I have one. I have one I've been dropping in recently, probably the last 6 or 8 months of episodes of Orko from He-Man.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and he did a bumper that said,
"Don't go away. We'll be back right after these messages."
So I'll drop that in Succotash, and then we'll go to a Henderson's pants ad.
Yeah, Orko was that was one of those things. Like, he did not exist if you bought the action figures, and then the cartoon came out, and you're like, "What is this magical scarf troll that is floating around that no one told me about? When do I get that action figure?"
Exactly. Hey, let's play another congratulations from our friend Jabs, Jason McNamara from down Australia way.
Hi, this is Jabs from the DA Factor and Oglewood and everything that has been successful that's come out of Australia in the last 10 years. I want to wish and thank Succotash on their 12th year anniversary for basically helping me to create Boganwood and D-Ad Factor. They were there early on when we created these podcasts. They're not around anymore, but it's a sign of the times that Succotash is still around and still able to give back to all the comedy podcasts out there. Marc and Tyson have done an amazing job in exploring the cracks and crevices that is the podcast / soundcast market, and I wish them all the best. You got to remember how kind of unique and how hard it is to be able to troll through back when Succotash started, I'd assume 12 years ago, since it is their 12-year anniversary. Being able to identify a soundcast and podcast back then was very proactive. You had to go around looking for them and trying to find ones with great talent, such as the D-Ad Factor and Boganwood. But now, they seem to be everywhere. And whilst it's a diluted market, you still got to be able to enjoy great quality content, and that's what Succotash brings you, is it sifts through the crap so you don't have to. Hence why Bogan gets featured a lot. This sounds like a lot of cross-promotion. Maybe I should write the new season. Congratulations to Tyson and Marc on reaching yet another milestone. And I just want to, again, thank you for all your support and all your help, and wish you the best in whatever Succotash does next. I eagerly look forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Jabs.
That's very nice.
Jabs is the best. And he's so right. Like, I remember how excited I was the first time you clipped my show. Like, someone noticed I made a show. I was so excited that it wasn't just me talking about my show for the first time. Because when you started doing this, even now, because it's such a crowded market, but 12 and 11 years ago when this was going on and people maybe hadn't even heard the term podcast or soundcast, I remember someone coming up to me saying, I like your audio blog. And I went, close enough. I'll take it, whatever you got. But I would always try and work it into a conversation that I was doing when I went to a friend's wedding and I wrote on the wedding registry, listen to my podcast, and I put the website in. Like, that's all I ever talked about. And getting clipped and getting talked about it and getting passed around other creators, it's just a great feeling and a great thing you've built over this last 12 years.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was just, when I came up with the concept, I've talked about this on the show before, was because a lot of my comedian friends were doing them and I wanted to do a podcast. And so I spent maybe 8 months just really, do I want to interview people? Do I want to get people in a room and have a round table thing? And do I want to do sketches? I couldn't really come up with anything. And I realized as I was looking at the numbers, I think at the time, I saw a thing that said 15% of Americans had heard the term podcast, but most of them had never listened to one. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, that's kind of shitty. And all these friends of mine were out there doing them. And I said, well, what if we had a Whitman sampler of a type of show where you could play clips and people could go, hey, I like that. I'm going to go find that. So we have clips, we have our blog that goes along with it with links, so you can always find who you're listening to, which was great. And for the most part, I think for the first couple of shows, I actually asked the creators permission to clip their shows. And by about the third show, the response I kept getting was, why wouldn't I let you clip my show? Right. So I then just realized, well, we are just sort of giving free PR and exposure. So I stopped asking permission. We just started doing it. Never heard a word about it until I got a note from Doug Benson. I'd clipped Doug Loves Movies.
Oh.
He DM'd me on Twitter and said, who gave you permission to clip this show? And I wrote back and said, well, no one. I mean, you're out there in the public domain, basically. I was just clipping the show to publicize it. He says, well, our show is a long form show and it doesn't work just to take a snippet out of the middle of it. So please remove it. So,
and at which point you're like, more Doug Loves Movies clips. That's what we need. Shorter Doug Loves Movies clips and more of them.
So I went back into that episode. I sliced it out. And I didn't feature his show for years until I ran into him at, I think it was the first or second Los Angeles Podcast Festival.
Oh, those.
Do you remember those? That's where you and I first met in
It
person.
is, isn't it?
And I met Doug Benson there, and he goes, he found out I was running Succotash, and he said, hey, do you ever feature my show? And I said, yeah, do you remember this? And I realized it was Doug Benson, so probably didn't have any real short-term memory about it because of his association with weed. But he said, oh, no, you can clip my show anytime you want. So all was forgiven for a transgression. He didn't even realize it happened.
Oh, dude, you should totally feature my show. You told me not to. Oh, I did. Dave's not here, man. Yeah.
I would like to add that I actually did, after that time period, clip an episode of Doug Loves Movies, and it mostly featured Bert Kreischer laughing uncontrollably for about 3 or 4 minutes.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah. So, it was a little bit of the context.
Yes.
But it was a really long laugh. So I thought, that's just funny to hear people laughing sometimes.
It is.
When they can't control their laughter. To me, that's a special thing.
Getting back to jabs for a minute, one of the things that was really cool for me was making these associations outside of, let alone outside of Northern California where I live, but internationally. I mean, becoming regular conversants with people like Jabs and Davian Dent in England and all these different people. And they most of them I have never met in person. George Grimwood's the only person I think from the English podcast world that I've actually met in person, spent time with at the Los Angeles Podcast Festival. But Jabs and I, we exchange movies over, we used to send each other DVDs and stuff. He would send me Australian stuff that wasn't available here. His kids still listen to or still watch my Santa Junior movie every year. And he takes a picture of them holding the DVD cover. And I've seen them literally turn into teenagers since we've been doing that.
Wow.
Jabs is great. I mean, he is another guy who, same thing, like, I will often say, oh, I have my friend Jabs lives in Australia. Again, I've talked with Jabs. I adore Jabs. I've never met Jabs, but like usually I'll just be like, is Australia really this terrifying? How many spiders are there that are poisonous that you come across? And I have a great conversation with him one time where I'm a curious person by nature. I remember messaging him during one holiday and I went, how do you explain that all of the Christmas movies are wintry, but it's summer for you? And he's like, I just tell the kids it's cold where Santa is. And I was like, that's great.
He knows I love videos of kangaroos beating the crap out of people. So he'll send me those all the time because they're always on the news or on Instagram or something. So he always forwards those, which are great. But he is working on his 3rd season of Boganwood. It's been a long time since the 2nd season. But I think he told me he's got 4 episodes written. He's got another 4 or 5 that he's doing. And I remember I was so blown away by his 1st season of Boganwood, which is basically bogans in Australia are basically kind of like the same way what's that? Redneck, white trash kind of thing. And I was so blown away by the production value and the voices and everything else that I featured every episode kind of at the end of Succotash episodes. I talked to him about it and I said, yeah, I want to just feature it. So I would always play a full episode of Boganwood as they were coming out.
That's so cool.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
It's a fun little community of people that, it's like our graduating class of podcasters. It's like, we kind of were all in the trenches at the same time at this one, time of the world. And it's very cool.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing. I remember we did have a feature for a while on Succotash called the Podcast Graveyard. Podcast Graveyard. Where I would play clips of shows that we hadn't heard from for at least a year. It had to be gone for a year. And then once the tidal wave of network based shows started to come in, I could not keep track of the stuff that had been eclipsed. It was just gone in the sea of sound, and just like, are they even around? And to your point you mentioned earlier, Travis, everything lives forever. So you can look it up. You go, oh, they're still broadcasting. Then you look at the tiny print, and it's like, 8 years ago was the last episode they recorded.
And then, the outro is always like, next episode, we're going to come back. It's going to be great. You're like, well, are you really taking your time with that next episode?
They're really crafting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happens with Antisocial Show, where haven't had an episode released for almost a year now. But we got two in the can, and I've been doing other things, so.
Well, that's okay. Speaking of Antisocial Show, I believe our next congratulations is from your cohort on that show, Hunter Block.
Oh, alrighty then.
Let's give that a spin.
This is fun.
Hit me.
From Studio A in Arcata, behind the...
I'm sorry, we seem to be having some technical difficulties.
I promise there really is no technical difficulties, but I am taking over Succotash, the comedy soundcast, just long enough to wish Marc, and a very happy 12th anniversary, guys. Congratulations, much love, much respect, and looking forward to more years of Succotash. So please pass that Succotash. It's been real. I'm out of here. Peace.
All right.
Yeah, that was fun.
Thank you, Hunter. Loyal listener. Hunter's been hanging in there since the beginning, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, well, I've known Hunter since about 2012, which is about when I started contributing, and all these kind of things sort of nails come together,
Yeah.
With Chillpak as well, because of Combat Radio. Actually, that was one of the ones I started. That was an internet, still is an internet radio program that I think might still be live on Fridays.
Oh, okay.
Haven't listened in a while, but was involved with that, and then that's how Hunter and I met. And then a few years later, Hunter's like, hey, why don't we try doing a podcast? You've been thinking about it? And I was like, yeah, because I had done one, a short-lived one for about 10 episodes. And I was like, yeah, well, maybe one day I'll do that again. And then it became something we started, he and I. So that's how that happened. I've probably told the story before, and maybe even better the last time I did. It's hard to say.
But yeah, I remember I got to go on Ethan Dettenmeyer's Combat Radio. I was in LA doing something, and he said, yeah, come on by. So I was on the show with a couple of voice people, and he always has like this cacophony of guests that just roll in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, every time they would put a picture up of who was on this week's or today's show, it was like 17 people all kind of crammed in the studio.
Wow.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of. So let's see, J. Rowe from the Alcoholics would come by. Jason Connery, Marc Ryan, Adrian Paul, who he collaborates with frequently on Peace Fund Radio. Stephanie Erb was on that show. There's been lots of people. These are some of the ones I can remember right away. Jay Tavaray.
Yeah. I think when I was on, there was a voice guy named Lex Lang.
Lex Lang.
Does a lot of superhero voices for cartoons.
Richard Epcar also does that. Sally Safiota was on there. Carolyn Hennessy, Stan Zimmerman. Now it's just a game to see how many I can remember. Yeah. Of course, he had Dean and Phil from Chillpak Hollywood Hour, Michael Denon, who had been a consultant on Ancient Aliens.
Oh, okay.
So one of the people that they'd go to for real science stuff, as he's a physicist, and help lend a little credibility. He was on the same episode actually as with Dean and Phil at least once, and then Hunter actually had a couple segments on the show as well every now and then.
Didn't he do like a Halloween thing? He would always call in on like Halloween and do go to like a cemetery or something.
Yeah, like a remote. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he called in. That was fun. That was kind of pretty much how we met on the episode. We were on actually one episode on the same episode, and it was I think it was near Halloween, and he did a report about how he was the descendant of Captain Kidd, and I was doing something on Ed Wood's Plan 9 from Outer Space and trying to get everybody to understand that it was actually a good movie. It was just poorly executed, but really earnest and fun, and people should watch it. And then we just kind of struck up conversation after that. From completely different parts of both my fingers, there it is, from completely different parts of the United States, me being over here on the
You guys are very sort of concerned about how your fingers are showing up on Zoom, even though no one can see them. You had mentioned Dean and Phil. That's TV's Dean Haglund from The X-Files and Lone Gunman.
Yeah.
And you can't forget the very popular U2 TV, which I wrote all of his host copy for.
Wow! See, look at see how it intermeshes like that.
Neat.
And Phil Leirness, who is his partner in crime and podcasting and other things. And I remember I'm leading into them because they're our next congratulatory message that they actually had on their show last week. So the clip we're playing for them is not, they didn't specially record it for us, but they did this for their show about us. But before we get to that, they've been around since 2007, I think, is when Chillpak started. So they were right on the tail end of the very beginning, like when Ricky Gervais' show was on. Right. So I packed up my rudimentary recording gear and I met them at a Ethiopian restaurant or something down in the South Bay area. And we recorded it. And I dubbed them at the time, they were podcast royalty, because they were kind of the show I started listening to. I really kind of cut my teeth on their show for whatever reason. I'd met Dean because he was doing stand-up and he was in my area and had done some improv and was doing stand-up, and we had dinner together and hung out because we have all these friends in common. And I just started listening to their show. And I said, wow, that's really, so that's what a podcast is. Okay, I get this. Okay, cool. This is great. They're two guys. They talk about a bunch of stuff about Hollywood. And I've become really good friends with them. And like I said, Phil's had me do the announcing for the LA Breakfast Club podcast. And he regularly calls in for our Succotash and Runaway Truck hotline. He's really the only one that ever has called in, but he would call in and talk about the status of the Grapevine Runaway Truck ramp on I-5.
The popular one.
Yeah, very popular. Yeah. But anyway, so this next piece, again, this is from their show. So this is Chillpak Hollywood's congratulatory message to us.
Before we go, I don't need to tell you that the month of April is also bringing just a hallmark milestone event in the annals of podcasting history.
What would that be?
Well, why, it's 12 years of being served up delicious, nutritious portions of Succotash.
Succotash!
The comedy soundcast.
Of course.
This was started, of course, by Marc Hershon, ably assisted by his loyal announcer, Bill Haywatt. And soon Tyson Sainer joined the fold as a producer and now shares hosting duties, of course, with Marc Hershon. When you think of the 12-year legacy of Succotash, what comes to mind, Dean?
Well, I drew a logo, and I believe I still drink my tea out of the Succotash coffee mug.
So you made a contribution to the world of Succotash, and they have kindly championed our work through the years. But I don't like to deal strictly in the positive.
Of course you don't. So, you're not going to say something mean, are you?
You and I represent maybe the last of the original wave of podcasters who are still doing it. And quite frankly, we've represented the last of the original wave to still be doing it for many, many years now.
Right.
We're the last one still alive, I think. I could be wrong. But we live in an age where I cannot read anyone's bio anymore without podcaster being in their bio.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone. Michael Douglas is a podcaster. Every author is a podcaster. I think everyone on this planet before we are done will have a podcast.
Which seems like it's already there, isn't it?
From my perspective and the blood and sweat and tears we put into this. If you have not scheduled your life around producing this podcast, you are not a podcaster. You have a hobby.
You have a hobby.
In much the same way that we have too many murders in this country, and I directly lay the blame for that on the success of the podcast Serial. So too do I place the blame for there being way too many comedy podcasts on the doorstep of Succotash.
Wow.
It has motivated more people to become podcasters so that they could enjoy just a few minutes in the sweet, sweet spotlight that Succotash provides. Warm themselves, bathe themselves in the glow of affirmation that a profile on Succotash provides. So is there any message that you have on the occasion of a 12th anniversary?
I could use another mug.
I do sincerely hope in some form or another that Marc and Tyson and the great Bill Haywad just keep on passing the Succotash.
Belated spoiler alert.
That's great.
Isn't that terrific? They spent their hard-earned podcast time doing that.
They're so fun too. Like another group of people I feel just incredibly lucky to have met, and I've been a guest on their show. I've done stand-up with Dean. I have a life drawing of myself that Dean did of me while I was doing stand-up that I have somewhere in my office. I just feel grateful to have met people like that, and they're just always hilarious.
Phil was in San Francisco, and so I invited him to come by as a co-host, guest co-host. This is the early days. So he came by, and he was actually in Studio P, home of the hit, in Sausalito, which is Joe's home studio. It came time to start the show, so Bill Haywad had to come in and kick things off. And we had created quite a fiction in that short amount of time between Bill Haywad and Joe Polino, and nobody knew that Joe was actually the voice of Bill Haywad. And so when it came time for Bill to start the show, Joe just leaned into the microphone and in his booth and just started doing Bill Haywad. And Phil was agape because he had listened to the episodes and had no idea the two gentlemen were the one and the same.
It's a great episode. You guys do a Boozing with Bill segment on that.
Oh, yes. Boozing with Bill.
Boozing with Bill.
Love Boozing with Bill episodes we did where Travis, I don't know if you're familiar with Boozing with Bill, but we would set up a wet bar in Joe's studio, and then Bill would proceed to make some drink that he had learned in his many, many years in terrestrial radio. And he would tell about the history of, the station he was at where he discovered this drink, whether it be Omaha or Hawaii or Tennessee. And he would have some sort of themed drink, and he would make it and then make me drink it.
That's great.
There was another thing that I did for about a year. And Travis, you'll remember this because I would try to come up with, I said, you know what? I really like post-credit scenes in movies.
Yeah.
So I want a Succotash version of that. And what I started to do was I would go on YouTube and look for people doing Succotash recipes. And I would pull the audio off and I would just play the recipe, the person describing the recipe. And I said, well, this is just fine, but I'm literally running out. There aren't that many. Right. So I started turning to some of our regular guests and friends like Travis, and I would ask them to do a Succotash recipe. And you did one as Eddie Vedder.
That's right, because we had just done I don't know how I came up with this, but on the show we had Chef Eddie Vedder, and he would just cook things. It usually was cookies, but I did an entire. And you did such a great job because I was giving off all the you chop up your carrots, but you had like the chopping carrots thing going on, and it was great.
I will dig that up and pop that in here. I got to find it, but
please do.
I'll get that.
I want to hear that again. It's been so long since I've heard that. It's been funny.
Hi, this is Brandy from Tiny Odd Conversations, and here at the TalkPod headquarters, we are huge fans of Marc Hershon and his Succotash show, which is the comedy podcast, and we are going to do a little special treat for him. We have a cooking segment all ready to go, and it is our celebrity guest and TalkPod past guest, Chef Eddie Vedder. Welcome, Chef.
Hey, thanks for having me back on to talk about a Succotash recipe. Succotash is the original American food, while its Native American recipe has always contained corn and beans. Squash is commonly adapted. Would you like to hear a Succotash recipe?
Well, that was beautiful and sung oh so handsomely, Chef Eddie Vedder. I just want to let people know, in case they're a little confused, is that you do suffer from Vedder syndrome, which is basically you can only sing in the keys of your song.
Oh, I've had a brain injury, but I can work through it. I'm working and I'm still cooking. Now let's get into the ingredients for Succotash. You'll need 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil, 2 cups fresh or frozen corn, and a half cup of yellow onion chopped. 1 large red bell pepper, you're also gonna wanna chop that one up. 1 jalapeno or a small hot pepper, you'll need that one diced. And 1 cup of green or golden summer squash. You're gonna chop it. You're gonna chop it. And 2 garlic cloves. You're gonna mince those. And 1 tablespoon of ground cumin seed. It's cumin, with a liquid you not coming. And next you'll also need a 1/4 tablespoon of black pepper. Make that a teaspoon, not a tablespoon, that'd be too much. And also a teaspoon of salt. You'll also need 2 cups of canned lima beans, drained or frozen lima beans if they're thawed. 1/2 cup of chicken, or if you prefer, vegetable broth. And 2 tablespoons fresh cilantro, but you'll need to chop it up. Oh, that is all the ingredients that you will need. But if you've never heard me cook before, you'll know there's one thing I like to recommend. Make sure to wash your bitter hands before you start to cook so you don't pass staph infection. Should I continue, Brandy, with the cooking prep?
I'm watering at the mouth. Yes, thank you. But can you tell just real quick how long all of this stuff takes for the people?
Oh, that's exactly what I was about to do. That's what I'm going to do now. Oh, I'm going to do now. Your prep time is about 20 minutes or so. Your cook time is also going to be 20 minutes. Oh, so you can have Succotash all done within 40 minutes. That's not bad. Oh, that's not bad. Let's go over what you'll need to do next. Place a large saute pan on high heat until it's very hot. Add 1 teaspoon of the oil, the corn, the peppers, and the onion. Then saute until the vegetables start to brown. They will caramelize slightly. That's the look that you are going for. Oh, this should only take about 5 to 7 minutes. Add the remaining oil, squash, cumin, salt, black pepper, and garlic. Cook for another 3 minutes on a medium heat, and you're almost freaking done. Add the broth, cilantro, and lima beans, and then simmer until the vegetables are tender. It should only take about an additional 5 minutes. And that's when you're gonna have this delicious succotash all ready for you to eat.
Oh my God, thank you so much. I'm so hungry, Chef Eddie Vedder. Thank you for stopping by. Is there anything else you want to add?
Just wanted to say thanks to Marc Hershon. He hosts the Succotash. It's the comedy podcast. It's called the Succotash. You should rate and review them on iTunes. Just look for Succotash.
I want to make sure we get all of our friends in here. This next thank you is from Matt Knudsen. Travis, I don't know if you've run into Matt. He often plays at Flappers. And
yeah, I know Matt in passing. I don't know if he would remember me, but I've definitely met him a bunch of times. And he's just recently been on Apple TV's.
Yes.
Shrinking.
Yeah, he was like in the second to last episode was his big one.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's terrific. He used to have a podcast called Grabbing Lunch, and he would like go to lunch with two people and would set up microphones on the table, because I was on one with Cole Stratton, and we were at a deli in Santa Monica. You would eat and talk, and that's all it was Grabbing Lunch with Matt Knudsen.
Marc Hershon, Hersho! Matt Knudsen here with a happy birthday and congratulations for 12 years of the Succotash podcast. Incredible. Love the show, and also love your spirit of using your platform to shine a light on other artists. That's as cool as it gets. Happy birthday, Succotash.
Great guy.
Great.
Thank you, Matt. That was terrific.
That's very nice.
I've only heard nothing but kind things about that guy.
Someone who was going to record and apologize was Ed Wallach. You gentlemen are familiar with Ed Wallach.
Ed Wallach, yeah.
Don't Quit Your Day Cast was the name of his soundcast a long time ago. But
he's another one of those class of 2011, 2012 people. He started around the same time.
He is, but he's been traveling and working a lot, and doesn't have access to his recording equipment. So he apologized and couldn't kind of put one together for us, but we recognize him in the pantheon of early soundcasters. Let's play another one of our congratulatory messages from across the pond this time, from our friends Davian Dent, Kat Sorens, and Dom Risk of the Strange Times podcast.
Yes, thanks for your opinion, but with all due respect, Mr. Sunak, you're a Tory cunt. Lots of love, Davian. Right, oh, fuck me. Yeah, guys, we've got to do the tribute for Succotash, all right? Kat, Dom? Yeah?
Sorry, mate, I'm a bit busy at the moment.
Oh, fuck's sake, come on. They did one for us the other day.
Right, listen, just call them cunts and then humorously say, no offence.
Oh, fucking useless. Cat, come on, mate, sort us out.
Oh, not now, mate. I'm having a wank.
Well, can't you have one later? Come on, it's not as if it takes you a long time.
That's dumb.
I just did. You were there. Oh, never mind, I'll fucking do it myself.
Oi, no using this audio on any other shows.
Yeah, damn right.
Right. Hello there. I'm Davian Dent. You may know me from podcasts such as strangetimesshow.com and The Bitter Sound. You may also know me from BBC Radio 4's The Skewer, but that's not why I'm here. Why am I here? I actually ask myself that quite a lot. No, seriously though, folks, I am here to say thank you very much to Marc Hershon and Tyson Sainer for umpty years of Succotash, the comedy soundcast at Soundcast. If you're north of Watford, we'd call it a soundcast. much as I would normally call it a podcast, but never mind. Seriously, though, thank you very much for all the support you've given us all. Not just my fucking shows, but every show that you featured, of which there have been many. Thank you very much for the support over all the years, repeatedly too, probably against your better judgment. Long may you continue to be a rock of sanity in a sea of shit. Yeah, I think that works. Guys, you're legends. You really are. And I can't thank you enough. So I won't try. No. Keep on keeping on. Kick against the pricks. Smash the patriarchy. Promote soundcasts globally. And I one day hope to hear you being the first soundcast broadcasting from Mars. Or Uranus. So get it. Oh, never mind. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, Davian. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Dom.
It is like AI made a British character. It's like it has all the hallmarks of, yeah, that's what I needed. That's the guy in the pub at Ted Lasso who's like mad at everybody, and that's Davian. I love those guys. They're great.
They are, and they'll. It's funny because a lot of the British podcasters have done like these like holiday specials, and they'll. I just remember, getting a script and reading some lines and have no idea what they're going to work with, and then you listen to it. Who was the guys? They would do a Christmas panto every year for like 3 years.
Was it Royal and Doodle?
It was Royal and Doodle, and they would do that panto, and all of us were on there. They would have all of us do voices for it. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I always got cast as the person who did the worst British accent. That was like always the role that they wrote for me. And I was like, I thought mine was pretty good. I guess not. The Strange Times guys just had a big anniversary as well. Recently,
10-year anniversary. Wow. Yeah.
Yes. I sent in something for that.
As did I. In fact, and then Tyson played the things we sent in on his show last week.
Strange Times guys, I'm sorry. I was supposed to send something and I clearly forgot. So happy belated anniversary. And I am still traumatized by the blue waffle. So that is.
They did play a little bit of that sound clip on their 10-year show. just a tiny bit. I hear that pop up so often on Strange Times. That, all right, what's a blue waffle? Don't do it.
Yeah. And then they show it to me, and I say, "This is the embodiment of what it feels like to be on your show." And then I remember Kat losing it. It is. Do not Google blue waffle. That's all I can tell you. This is what I've learned from knowing those guys. Do not Google that. You don't want.
And now everybody's going to.
No, don't.
They will. They will. Let's play our last congratulatory message, and then we'll get out of here. Going back to Australia, Stu Buckland, who again. Been around, I think, with our same class. If you remember the Angry Chimp.
I do.
Yes, the Angry Chimp podcast. And as he will enumerate, he's had a lot of podcasts. And Tyson featured his most recent podcast on his last episode last week called Bit Weird But Fair, I Guess.
It's a bit weird, but fair enough, I guess.
This is Stuart calling... recording in last minute with his congratulatory message.
Hello, Succotash show, and happy 12 years. Well done on so many years of doing the podcast community a massive solid and just showing everybody some of the great stuff that's out there. Such a great idea for a podcast, and honestly, such a great thing for the pod industry to have. My name's Stu from here we go. The Angry Chimp Show, What a Pair of Trousers, Welcome to Television, What's the Go, Bit Weird But Fair Enough, Dad Pants, What's Fucked Today, and one or two others. What's become apparent is that maybe it's best to have one good idea for a show and stay with it, Succotash style, rather than what I've been doing. I've learnt this lesson a little late. So well done to Marc, Tyson, and everyone else there. And let's have, at least 12 more. Years,
All
that
right.
is. Not episodes, of course. Years.
Sorry, Stu.
Oops. I think my favorite part of this was when I saw it in the show notes. I thought it was a critique of what was sent in of like bit weird, but fair enough, I guess. I thought was you saying like, that's what we're getting. That's what we're going to be playing. It's something that's a bit weird, but it's fair enough.
Fair enough, I guess.
But that's actually the show.
Yep.
That is actually the show. Anyway, so thank you to everybody who sent in those congratulatory messages. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we've this is our 12th year anniversary, and as we've mentioned a little bit anyway at the beginning, we are going to take a hiatus after this show for we believe a couple of months. We're going to be coming up with concept ideas. We've got a couple of things we've been kicking around.
Just glad I could be the final cannonball that sunk the ship. I'm glad I could come on and be what just ended a 12-year unblemished career.
Or perhaps you're kicking off the next phase of Succotash, because and we may just come back with the exact same concept, but I think we need a break. So we're going to take a couple of months off and just kind of think about things, but we've got some intriguing ideas up on the virtual whiteboard, I will say.
I hope you come back as a true crime podcast. I hope you come back and you only explore crime and you only feature crime.
If they were only popular, I would do that if they were popular.
True. Yeah, it's just so hard to get an audience with true crime.
But Tyson, any final reflections here as we wrap up our 12th anniversary show?
Wow. I'm as always, I'm just very happy to be here. Succotash has been, a part of my life for even though I've only been in it for 10 years, about 12 years. And it's, hopefully one day my kid will listen to this, dig through the archives, and anybody else in my family. That would be great. So it's been, it's been a great ride. It'll be interesting to see if the hiatus does in fact last longer than 2 weeks. Because who knows, something amazing could transpire that we would absolutely need to come back for.
Yep. Just like we did with COVID. Who knows? And then,
and one of my favorite things about the last time we did that was hearing Phil and Dean talk about it and bringing back the old adage, it's how can we miss you if you don't leave? It's like, oh, yeah. And also thank you very much. It was nice meeting you, Mr. Clark.
It's great to finally meet you. I mean, I feel like I have met you. Like I see your content on TikTok. I interact with you on other platforms. So it's like, it's one of those very funny, like, oh yeah, it's just actually our first time having a live interaction where I see your face and you see my face, but I do feel like I know you. And I feel like Succotash it's been a huge part of my life. I've met people that I consider friends, as we were saying, Marc, some of whom we've maybe have never even met in person, but Marc, I've had the pleasure of sharing many a meal with you and spending time around you. And I'm just so thankful to podcasting in general, but especially to a place like Succotash that passes around what everybody's kind of cooking up in their second room and trying to make other people laugh at. It's a really special thing.
That's great. Well, thanks again for joining us, Travis. Really appreciate it. And happy anniversary to you and Brandy. I guess with that, we'll just ask Bill Haywat to see us out of here. His thing will sound like we're coming back next week, but we'll be back at some point, hopefully not in the not too distant future. And for all of you who've been with us for just this episode or all 12 years of Succotash, thanks so much for listening. We appreciate your support. And please remember, if anyone should ask you if you've heard anything decent, please pass the Succotash.
You've been listening to Succotash, the comedy soundcast, with your host, Marc Hershon and Tyson Sainer. Brought to you by Henderson's Pants and...
Imagine your company's name right here.
Rate us and review us at Apple and Google Podcasts. Find us on the web at succotashshow.com, on Spotify, on Stitcher, on iHeartRadio, on YouTube,
on SoundCloud,
and wherever fine soundcasts are streamed and or downloaded.
downloaded.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Succotash Show. Like us on Facebook. Email us at marc@succotashshow.com. Or call into the Succotash Skype line at our toll call number 818-921-7212.
That number again is 818-921-7212.
Succotash is produced and engineered by Joe Paulino through the auspices of Studio P Sausalito, the home of the hit. Our hosts are Marc Hershon and Tyson Sainer. Our musical director is
Scott Carvey.
Our booth assistant is
Kenny Durges.
Succotash is executive produced by Marc Hershon. Until next time, I'm your loyal booth announcer, Bill Haywatt, reminding you to please pass the Succotash. Goodbye. This has been a Succotash Patch production.